What is up, everybody? I'm your Legendary Commander, and welcome back to another episode of Baldur's Gate 3. In this video, we're going to talk about some cool spells that you probably don't use. So let's get started with my first one. This one I always keep on me, but I never actually get to use it, almost never see a need to, especially since most of the time this is found on a Warlock, and that is Invisibility. With Invisibility, it seems that if you go invisible, you almost can't get into a fight. Unless the creature has True Sight or Tremor Sense, he's not going to find you. And the game doesn't seem to recognize sound. And since the added benefit of combat just ends after it gets to an enemy's turn and they can't locate you, well, you can use this to your advantage, and if things are going south, you can just completely disappear on the enemy, and then go pick up an ally. Perhaps turning the engagement into your favor. Just know any strong enemies are going to auto-heal because they're no longer in combat. Another really cool spell that probably doesn't get used very often is Charm Person. The spell seems to be automatically applied if you're in a dialogue sequence, which means anytime you are in a conversation, you can charm a person if you have that spell available. This would give you advantage on dialogue checks, and even if you fail, one great thing is if the enemy is by himself, and you are as well, the enemy will be incapable of attacking you, and you can just walk away, and there's nothing he can do about it. During combat, it's a little harder to apply, as you can see I had only a 42% chance, but whether or not those numbers were telling the truth, I can't verify. In my opinion, this spell doesn't get used a lot because your spells are normally reserved for other things. It is important to note though that the enemy can still attack your allies. That all said, Charm Person has a save, but there's another one that doesn't have a save, and this one probably doesn't get used a lot either, and that is Friends. Right now, Charm Person seems to have a save, but right now I'm not seeing it get utilized. This may change with later patches, so Friends is great because Friends has no save. And this can mean you can use Friends to get advantage on your charisma checks. However, if you still fail, the enemy will still be able to attack you. Another really cool spell that I think doesn't get used often is Heat Metal. Heat Metal is a really cool spell because if the enemy is wearing metal armor, there's almost nothing he can do about it. And unless the enemy were to drop his weapon, if he's carrying a metal weapon, it can also burn him there, doing 2d8 fire damage. This can make an enemy drop his weapon, but unfortunately if he drops his weapon, you can't reapply it to him or any of his allies, thus making the spell useless. So if you are going to cast it on somebody, make sure they're wearing like a metal chest plate. It uses your bonus action to reapply it, thus that way you can keep on applying it, or at least force them to take off their chest plate. Unfortunately, this spell is also concentration, which means you run the risk of losing it if you get hit. Another spell that could be really cool to use is Ray of Enfeeblement. Any strength-based attack made by an enemy creature is cut in half. So, for those hard-hitting enemies that you need to prevent them from doing so much damage because they can almost one-hit you, this might be a spell to use on them. Unfortunately, the number of actual heavy hitters in combat are far and few apart. Heavy hitters that use strength-based attacks usually have a high constitution, which is the save that the enemy will be making at the end of every one of his turns to end the spell. And being this is a concentration spell, there's a lot of smaller enemies that are probably going to break your concentration, making this spell a moot point. If I'd use this anywhere, it'd be on the Githyanki fight against the lead Githyanki, who happens to hit very hard and very often. However, given the nature of that fight, it is likely that you won't be able to concentrate on it long before you're hit and lose that ability, but it could save you some damage when you're smacking her and she tries to smack you back. Unfortunately with these spells, as of the moment, they kind of fade into the background. Some of these spells you may use on occasion, but for the most part you almost don't see a need to, and most of this game still favors combat spells that are fit more for crowd control than single heavy hitters. But guys, that is going to be it for this one. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Make sure to tell your friends. But y'all take care. And I will catch you next time.